My name is Sarah, and at my birthday dinner in the glittering heart of Seattle's Glasshaven restaurant, my sister Chloe stood up, her hand on her barely there bump, and announced she was carrying my husband Ryan's child. The room spun, the clink of wine glasses fading into a dull roar as every eye turned to me, waiting for me to break. They wanted a scene. Tears, screams, maybe a shattered plate. Chloe's smirk was sharp enough to cut glass, and Ryan, standing beside her, had the nerve to look sympathetic, like he hadn't just plunged a knife into my back. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, my fingers tracing the stem of my Pinot Noir glass, letting the silence grow heavy, suffocating. They thought they'd written my story. They had no idea I was holding the pen. Growing up in a cramped Seattle duplex, I was the one who kept things together, while Chloe, 2 years younger, danced through life as the golden child. I was the one balancing the checkbook when our parents forgot to pay the electric bill. Chloe got the spotlight. New dresses, dance lessons, all the applause, while I got lectures about responsibility. "You're so reliable, Sarah," they'd say like it was a compliment, but it always felt like a cage. I didn't mind. Not really. I loved my sister, even when her charm outshone me. I thought that's just how families worked. One of us grounded, one of us a star. When I met Ryan, I thought I'd finally found my own light. He was a financial consultant, all charisma and big promises with eyes that made you feel like the only person in the room. We married in a small ceremony by Lake Washington, and I poured everything into building a life with him. My dream was a family, kids running through a backyard, laughter filling a home we'd make ours. But after years of trying, no baby came. Every negative test chipped away at me until I felt like I was failing at the one thing I wanted most. Ryan would hold me, his voice soft, saying, "It's okay, Sarah. We'll keep trying." I believed him. I believed in us. That belief shattered one rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was in our apartment scrolling on our shared tablet for a lasagna recipe when an email notification popped up. It was from Chloe to Ryan. The subject line chillingly simple: "Our plan." My stomach twisted like I'd swallowed ice. I knew I shouldn't look, but my hands moved before my brain could catch up. The email laid it all bare. The affair, months of stolen moments behind my back. But it was the last paragraph that made my knees buckle. Chloe's plan to announce her pregnancy at my birthday dinner, to humiliate me in front of everyone we knew, to push me into a quiet divorce where they'd walk away with everything. "She'll fold," Chloe wrote. She always does. I dropped the tablet, the screen cracking against the hardwood floor, mirroring the fracture in my chest. I stumbled to the bathroom, locking the door, my back pressed against it, as if I could keep the truth out. My breath came in jagged gasps, but I didn't cry. I opened my mouth, letting out a single silent scream. A raw, wordless release of the life I thought I had. Then something shifted. The pain didn't break me. It sharpened me. I picked up my phone and called Mia, my best friend since college. "Mia," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "It's happened. They're trying to destroy me." Her voice crackled with worry. "Sarah, where are you?" "Home," I said, "but I'm not going down without a fight. I'm gonna burn their world to the ground." The weeks after finding that email were a blur of rage and focus, like I was walking a tightrope between falling apart and fighting back. Mia came over that same night, her dark curls bouncing as she stormed into my apartment, ready to wage war. "We need a plan," she said, pacing the living room, her paralegal brain already clicking into gear. I sat on the couch, the cracked tablet still on the floor, and told her everything. Chloe's betrayal, Ryan's lies, their scheme to humiliate me. But it was a memory from a year ago that kept clawing at me, demanding attention. Ryan and I had been trying for a baby for years, each failed attempt to quiet wound. I'd begged him to get tested to see if the problem was medical. He resisted for months, brushing it off until one day he agreed. He went to Cascade Clinic alone, came home with red eyes and held me as I sobbed. "It's not me, Sarah," he'd whispered, his voice thick with what I thought was shared grief. "The doctor says I'm fine. It must be you." I carried that weight for a year, believing I was the broken one. My body a failure, every doctor's visit, every test. I blamed myself while Ryan played the supportive husband, stroking my hair, promising we'd get through it. That lie was a cruelty I couldn't unsee now. "Mia," I said, my voice hard. "I need the truth from Cascade Clinic. Ryan's results from a year ago." She frowned, tucking a curl behind her ear. "Sarah, that's protected by HIPAA. It's not easy to access. I'm his wife, I snapped, my hands trembling. There's gotta be a way. Mia nodded, her eyes narrowing. Give me a few days. I'll find a key to that fortress. It took 2 weeks of relentless work. Phone calls, digging through Ryan's old files for consent forms, and Mia's clever maneuvering around clinic protocols. One evening, an email arrived with a PDF attachment. My heart pounded as I opened it, my mouse hovering over the file. The report loaded and I scrolled to the summary. Patient exhibits 0 sperm motility. Diagnosis: aopermia, sterile. The word hit like a slap. Ryan wasn't just a cheater. He let me believe I was the problem, knowing he could never give me the family I dreamed of. My hands shook, not with sadness but with fury. If he could lie about that, what else was he hiding? That question became an obsession. I remembered Ryan's story about the clinic visit, specialist consultations, thousands of dollars. I pulled up our bank statements from that month. No payments to Cascade Clinic. Instead, a $20,000 cash withdrawal stared back at me, unaccounted for. My gut twisted. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was something bigger, darker. The next morning, I met Mr. Callahan, a private investigator with a calm, librarian-like demeanor in his cluttered Bellevue office. I don't care about the affair, I told him, sliding a folder with the bank statement across his desk. I know he's cheating. I need you to follow the money. Find out where that $20,000 went and anything else that doesn't add up. He nodded, his eyes sharp. I'll get you answers, Miss Sarah. As I left his office, the Seattle rain soaking my coat, I felt a spark of something new, not just anger, but power. Ryan and Chloe thought they could break me, but they'd underestimated me. I wasn't the fragile sister they'd written off. I was the one who'd been holding everything together my whole life, and now I was going to tear their lives apart. Mr. Callahan delivered 2 weeks later, his report landing in my inbox like a ticking bomb. I sat at my kitchen table, the Seattle skyline gray through the window, and opened the file. The numbers told a story worse than I'd imagined. Ryan had set up a shell account, funneling money to Chloe, her rent, her car, the designer bags she flaunted on Instagram. But the real gut punch was a $200,000 transfer from Ryan's corporate expense account, embezzled from his firm to a title company for a house in Tacoma, now in my mother's name. My own mother, who'd always chosen Chloe over me, was part of their scheme. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a conspiracy, a calculated plan to strip me of everything. I called Mia, my voice shaking, not with tears, but with cold resolve. They're not just taking my marriage, I said. They're stealing my life. Mia was at my apartment within the hour, her laptop open, helping me piece it together. The house in Tacoma, the money, Chloe's pregnancy. They planned to leave me broken and walk away with it all. My mother's involvement cut the deepest. She'd always excused Chloe's selfishness, but this signing her name to a house bought with stolen money. It felt like she'd erased me as her daughter. I spent the next few days preparing, my anger sharpening into a blade. Mia and I rehearsed my speech for the Glasshaven dinner, practicing in my living room until my voice didn't waver. You've got this, Mia said, her eyes fierce with pride. They're not ready for you. I nodded, clutching the 2 documents that would be my weapons. Ryan's medical report proving his sterility, and Callahan's financial report exposing the embezzlement. They were tucked in my purse, a quiet promise of justice. The night before the dinner, I stood on my apartment balcony, the Seattle skyline twinkling against the dark. I felt the weight of my family's betrayal, Chloe's envy, Ryan's lies, my mother's complicity. But I also felt something else. Strength. I'd spent my life being the steady one, the one who fixed things. And now I was going to fix this, not by screaming or begging, but by being smarter, sharper, unstoppable. As the city lights reflected off the water, I whispered to myself, tomorrow they'll see who I really am. The Glasshaven was all crystal chandeliers and soft jazz, the kind of place where Seattle's elite toasted their victories. My birthday dinner should have been a celebration, but as I sat at the long mahogany table, surrounded by friends and family, I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Chloe stood, her hand on her stomach, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she announced, Ryan and I are starting a family. Ryan's hand rested on her shoulder, his eyes flicking to me with that practiced pity I'd once mistaken for love. The room went silent, everyone waiting for me to crumble. I didn't. took a slow sip of my wine, letting a moment stretch, their smugness curdling under my calm. I stood, my glass raised, my voice clear as the chandelier light. To family, I said, pausing to let the words settle, and to the truth. I reached into my purse, pulling out a folded piece of paper, the medical report, and slid it across the table to Ryan. "What's this?" he asked, his voice tight, his fingers hesitating. "The truth," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "From Cascade Clinic, from a year ago." His face drained of color, his hand frozen above the paper. He knew. Chloe's smirk faltered, her eyes darting between us. "The biggest lie wasn't you sleeping with my sister, Ryan," I said, my voice ice cold, cutting through the room. "It was you letting me believe I was the reason we couldn't have a child." A gasp rippled through the table. Chloe's hand dropped from her stomach, her face crumpling as the truth hit. Ryan was sterile. Her pregnancy wasn't his. Her eyes snapped to him, then back to me, horror replacing her triumph. I turned to my mother, who sat rigid, her wine glass trembling. "And Mom," I said, my tone softening into something lethal. "That house in Tacoma is lovely, but when Ryan's firm finishes their fraud investigation into the missing $200,000, they'll be coming for it." The room erupted. Ryan lunged across the table, his face twisted with rage. "You liar!" he screamed, but 2 security guards were on him in seconds, dragging him back as he thrashed, cursing my name. Chloe sat frozen, her hands shaking, tears streaming down her face. My mother's sobs broke the silence, her head in her hands. I felt no pity, only a fierce, burning triumph. I'd spent years being the quiet one, the reliable one. But tonight I was a storm. I picked up my purse, Mia already at my side, her hand steady on my back. As we walked toward the heavy oak doors, Chloe grabbed my arm, her voice a desperate whimper. "Sarah, please." I looked at her hand, then into her panicked eyes and pulled free. "Savior, please," I said, my voice flat. "Final. And call whoever the real father is. He deserves to know." The doors swung shut behind me, muffling the chaos of the life I was leaving behind. For the first time in years, I could breathe the Seattle night air sharp and clean in my lungs. The months after that night were a whirlwind of lawyers, depositions, and paperwork, but it was a clean break. Ryan's firm, desperate to avoid a public scandal, settled generously, their payout enough to start fresh. I moved to a small apartment in Fremont, Seattle, with a balcony overlooking the canal. I found a pottery studio nearby, a quiet space where my hands worked wet clay, shaping something new from the mess of my past. One afternoon, as I laughed with Mia, who was comically failing to center her clay, she flicked a speck at me. "Divorce final?" she asked, grinning. "As of a few days ago," I said, my smile real, unburdened. They didn't want their dirty laundry aired in court. My phone buzzed on the table. A news alert from a local station. Former financial consultant Ryan Carter sentenced to 5 years for embezzlement. A grainy photo showed him in handcuffs, his face hollow. I stared at it, feeling nothing. No anger, no joy, just quiet. He was a chapter I'd closed, a book I'd finished writing. I turned back to my pottery wheel, the clay cool under my fingers. "Where were we?" I said to Mia, spinning the wheel again. "On my balcony. I keep a single orchid when I found wilted on a clearance rack at a garden store. It was battered, its blooms gone, but I saw something stubborn in its roots. I've been nursing it back, watering it, whispering to it like it could hear me. This morning I noticed a new bud, small but defiant, reaching for the light. For so long I thought I was the broken one, the one who couldn't grow. But I wasn't broken. I was just planted in the wrong garden, surrounded by people who'd rather see me wilt than thrive. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, rage, and the slow, messy work of rebuilding. If my story stirred something in you, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every scar tells a story of survival, strength, and new beginnings. Keep shaping your own truth, and I'll see you at the